Hello, bonjour, bonsoir. It's Mary Schiller, author and coach of maryschiller.com, also known as Mary in Paris. I am so thrilled to welcome you to this session called The Offer Switching Trap that every solopreneur falls into and how to get out of it. It is part of my series called the Simplicity Sessions Live. So if you are here with me live, please say hello in the chat. And this will be interactive. So if you are joining live, feel free to participate. If you are watching this on the replay, I so appreciate you taking the time to do that. So it's very interesting because as an introduction to this session, I want to start by saying that I have done this offer switching thing myself. And as I was preparing to give this training, I made a declaration both on my website and on Instagram that I'm going to restate here, at least in part, because it definitely applies to what we're talking about, which is that I have overcomplicated things for myself and for my clients. Not all the time, but more of the time than I wish I had. And so I am declaring from this moment forward, it is July 16, 2026, that I am now teaching something that I am calling radical simplicity for solopreneurs. And the reason why I believe that radical simplicity for solopreneurs is so needed is because I do see a lot of solopreneurs doing the very things that I'm going to talk about in this training. I would love to start with a question, and I should preface this also by saying that this is a judgment-free zone. So nothing you say here or comment in the comments, or if you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I've done that, that's okay, because as I said a moment ago, I have done this myself. And while I wish that I had done things differently, we can always start now. We can chart a course for what I'm calling radical simplicity starting today. So if you're here with me live, just type the number in the chat of how many things you either have offered, let's say in the last 6 months, or how many offers you have thought of offering. So either the number of offers you've actually put out there in the last 6 months, meaning different things, or how many offers you've contemplated putting out there if you haven't. I would love to see that number. Whatever the number is for you, if you're watching this on the replay, it's totally okay. It doesn't matter, because we're here to be honest about this and acknowledge the fact that many of us do engage in this offer switcheroo for a lot of different reasons, which I will go into in just a moment. So whatever that number is, whether it's 1 or 10 or 50, it's something to be aware of, because from where I am sitting today. Oh, hi there. Linda typed 6. Okay. From where I am sitting today, thank you for sharing that. I can see that the way forward as a solopreneur is to focus your energy on just one offer. I'm going to get into why that's important, but let's talk about what happens when we don't do that. I thought about 3 things. Mimi says 3 offers. Thank you for that, Mimi. I thought about 3 things that can happen when we are doing this offer switching thing, if we're doing it in public. So if you are actually putting something out there for people, even if it's something kind of similar to each other, I should make a distinction here. To me, there's a difference between an offer with different levels to it. So for example, I have an offer that I'm going to talk about at the end of this training that has 2 levels to it. So there's the level where I provide you with something and we have a call. And then there's the level where I provide you with something and then I coach you for several weeks, but it's the same offer. It's just a different tier. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about in this offer switching thing is when you're really jumping from one topic to another, and what can happen as a result of that. Is that clear? Let me know in the chat if that's making sense, because having an offer with different levels of, let's say, proximity to you is still the same offer. But if it's like one day you're talking about one topic and the next day or week you're selling an offer about something else, that's not in the same vein as a tiered offer. So obviously, one of the main things that can happen is your audience is going to get confused. And you may have heard this statement before, that a confused audience doesn't buy. That is probably what's going on if you are switching offers. I'm glad that's clear, Linda. Thank you. Because your audience isn't going to know what you represent to them and who and what kinds of solutions you're offering if you are going in a million different directions. As I just said at the start of this, I'll repeat it if you're just joining. I am now going forward representing one thing, and that is the idea of radical simplicity for solopreneurs, because I know that the online business space is very, very noisy. And there are things coming up, if we're on social media, in our feed all day long, giving us different ways of doing things, different things we can offer, et cetera, at least if your feed looks anything like mine. And if we are going to nip this offer switching thing in the bud or stop it wherever it is, we have to be aware that offer switching has consequences, like confusing the audience. Another thing it can do is that it just kills your momentum. When you are, oh, thank you, Mimi. I'm glad that makes sense, that a tiered offer is still the same offer. So let's use that as an example. So if you are selling an offer like I am starting to as of this week that has different tiers to it, that's still one offer that you can speak about. You can say, if you're, like in my case, if you're a do-it-yourselfer and you just want the 28-day simplicity playbook and then you're going to run with it, that's for you. If you are the type of person who wants the playbook and you want support as you take the steps and you may want a refresh of your playbook, then the 3 months of coaching is for you. So it's still the same thing. You're still talking about the same central core offer, but you're saying it has different ways of, you have different ways of accessing it. When you are selling that one thing and you're talking about that one thing all the time, you get really good at talking about it. You get good at selling it. You get good at explaining what it does. You can demonstrate things to people, and that starts to build momentum. But if you only are talking about it for a few days and then suddenly you're doing something else, all that momentum gets lost. That's a big problem. And the third thing that I thought about, because I'm really big on the idea of authority and building authority through things like offering trainings like this, or having a mini book with you as the author, or some kind of body of work like on a Substack or YouTube or whatever it may be, is when you do this offer switching thing, you're just eroding that authority. Every time you change a direction, your authority gets diminished, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. So you may find that over time, it's just getting harder and harder to sell something because people are confused. You've lost your momentum and your authority is being eroded. So I feel like this topic isn't discussed enough in the solopreneurship space, probably because people are feeling embarrassed by this. I will tell you that when I made the post on my Instagram account today about this topic of simplicity and saying that I had been confusing my clients. I didn't mean to do that, but that I was bringing too much complexity into things. It's not easy to admit when you've been doing something that has been costing you, but I do think it's necessary to, at least to ourselves, if not publicly. I decided to go public with mine. I don't have a huge following on there, but still you're putting yourself out there and saying that. It's just important to acknowledge when you have recognized that what you're doing isn't working. And offer switching is one of the biggest things that I see solopreneurs doing. So I made a little calculator, and I'm going to show you what the cost is of offer switching. So I'm going to just put in some numbers. How many offers have you tried in the last 12 months? So let's go back to the chat. Let's just say 3, because we had an audience member say 3. On average, how many weeks did you stick with each one before moving on? That's an interesting question. If you're here with me live and you were selling something, or even if you just planned it, even if you didn't actually sell it, but you sort of planned, you may have even designed it, you may have created a sales page. Like, how long did you spend per offer? How many weeks? I'll let you think about that if you want to enter something in the chat. In my own case, I might say that a typical one for me before I might have switched might have been a month, maybe 6 weeks, something like that. But I'll wait and see if anyone has any answers, because it's obviously a time drain to keep doing this, where you may create the thing, you get the sales page up, maybe you try selling it for a little bit. If it doesn't sell right away, then you quit. I'll get into why that happens. So just for this illustration, I'm going to just say 4 weeks. Okay. And how many hours a week did you put into each one? Now, we all know that preparing an offer to sell can take a lot of time. It takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of design thoughtfulness. So I would put in here, how many hours a week? I'm just going to say, how many do I want to say? I'm going to say 20, because a lot of times we're putting in quite a number of hours into something that we create. And what do you typically charge for your core offer? Let's see. Oh, you've just been thinking about offering it. Okay, you're still working on your first offer. Well, this will help you. I mean, me for sure. So let's say the offer is $997. I'm just making that up. So we have, how many offers have you tried in the last 12 months? 3. On average, how many weeks did you stick with each one before moving on? 4, so like a month. How many hours a week did you put into each one? 20. What did you typically charge for your core offer at $997? And how drained do you feel by all this switching? I'm going to put this all the way up to a 9. See what it's cost you. Okay, so $4,000 left on the table. It says you've cycled through 3 offers in the last year, giving each one about 4 weeks before moving on. That's roughly about 3 months, 240 hours spent starting over instead of building one offer all the way through. At $997 for your core offer, sales usually build as an offer gains traction. So that's real momentum and real money left on the table. The flip side, let's go down here. If you commit to one offer for the next 12 months, $29,910. So almost 30 grand. That's what's possible, and maybe even more. What's possible and even more if you commit to one offer for the next 12 months at $997. Sales tend to build the longer you stay. Testimonials stack up. Referrals kick in. The offer starts selling itself, and the stress. You'd only ever pay the starting over tax once, not 3 times. That is so big in this, because that is one of the pieces that really gets to us, right? Because every time we have to restart the offer engine, that's another several weeks of preparation and figuring out what it's going to be and making the sales page and all of that. Well, I personally am done with the starting over tax. I don't want to pay that anymore. So going forward, I am offering one thing at different tiers, one thing. And it's because I believe in this one thing that I will tell you about in a little bit more detail later on, that I am pouring my energy into it. It is eye-opening, isn't it, Mimi? When you see it in black and white like that, it's just very obvious what it's costing. And I wanted to, with this calculator, acknowledge the emotional and mental side of things too, because it's just very, very draining to keep doing this to ourselves. We don't want to have to keep starting over. I think of someone running a marathon. Imagine if they had to stop at a certain point and then start again. It also reminds me of years ago, my husband did this bike ride called L'Étape du Tour, where they actually do a stage of the Tour de France a few days before the actual riders come through. I think there were something like, I'm not kidding, like 15,000 people who did this stage of the tour, and my husband did it. And he was having to stop at certain points going up this huge mountain. And then he would have to restart. Every time he stopped, he was going to quit, and he didn't quit, but he just kept going. And every time he had to restart, it was just so much energy. That is what we're doing to ourselves when we do this offer switching. So that kind of puts it in perspective, right? Why it's detrimental to our business and why it's just not a fun place to be as a solopreneur. We don't want to have to drain our energy like that. So I want to talk now about some reasons why we might do this, like why we abandon offers, the difference between trying to sell something and selling something. How do we know if it's time to stick with the offer or change? And then how to build real momentum. Let me see. Mimi has a question. What about when you hold on too long to an offer before you realize that it's not working? I'm going to get into that. I'm definitely going to address that. So hold on for just a few minutes. All right. So first of all, this question, why do we abandon an offer right before it might actually start working? Have you ever seen that illustration of the guy digging for gold, where he's digging for a while, and he's put in all of this effort, and he's, got the pick in his hand, and he's digging for that gold, and he just decides, you know what, this is just too much work, I'm going to quit. And then if you see like an x-ray of where he is, the gold is really just literally right. If he had hit that pickaxe one more time, he would have struck gold. That's what most of us are doing with our offers. And you know why we're doing that? Because we believe we know how long something is supposed to take for it to work. We think that we can predict the future and that we know how long it's going to take for something to work. But we don't know that. We don't know that until we decide, as I'm encouraging you to do, to put your energy into that one offer until it starts to take off, until it starts to take off. The reason why we abandon it is because we think it's taking too long. And we think it's taking too long because we start to have all these ideas about, oh, it's not a good offer, or, oh, I'm not describing it very well, so, people aren't getting it, or whatever. Those things, especially the messaging piece, that could be true. But when we don't give ourselves enough time with an offer, we aren't giving ourselves enough time to learn how to describe it better, to connect with people who might be a good fit for it. If you're here with me live, can you think of some other reasons why we might abandon something before it actually starts working? Because to me, it looks like we're listening to a lot of doubt and a lot of fear that comes in, which is all normal. But what we can do instead is just sit with those feelings and not worry about it and just go, oh yeah, I always see doubt coming in. I always see fear coming in. It's just normal whenever I'm putting something out there. I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to react to it. I can keep going, and let's just keep describing the offer the best I can. Keep selling. Feedback is important, Mimi says, right? I would say yes, except that if we think that, okay, something should start selling, this offer should start selling within the next 2 to 3 weeks. If we have that in our mind, then we're going to be looking for validation for that. We're going to be looking for reasons why it's not selling instead of saying, I'm going to do whatever it takes to sell this because I believe in this offer so much. Yes, a fear of rejection. Exactly. That's a good point. We are afraid no one's going to buy it, so we stop it before anyone can reject us. That's a very astute observation you just made there. So that is certainly a big piece of why we stop. Because A, we think we know how long something's going to take, and B, we start to have all of this doubt and fear of rejection, all that come in, and we just would rather avoid all of that. So we just quit and start again. And then we pay, what do we pay? The starting over tax. Once again, don't like that. Sometimes people will say to me, well, Mary, I've been trying to sell this offer for the last month or two, and it's just not working. Nobody's buying, or I've had like one sale and I expected 10 and nothing's happening. And I often find that phrase interesting, trying to sell. What does that actually mean? If you're here with me live, what does it mean to try to sell something? Because when I was writing out this outline, the phrase that popped into my head was, can anyone guess? It's from a very famous movie, a very famous little green character who says, do or do not. There is no try. Anyone else a Star Wars fan? Yoda? Do or do not. There is no try. That is the same with selling. You are either selling or you are not selling. If you are trying to sell, you are not selling. If you are trying to sell, you aren't selling. So you're either selling or you're not selling. So if you say, well, I'm trying to sell it, that means you're not actually selling it. Exactly. You're not actually doing it, Mimi. So that is another piece of this. Before you switch out an offer that you think is not selling, you've got to be real with yourself and say, am I actually selling this? Or am I just quote unquote trying to sell it? And if that's the case, have Yoda's voice come into your mind and say, do or do not. There is no try. Often I will ask people who say, I haven't made any money in the last few months. And I'll say, well, how often are you selling your offers? And they'll say, well, not really ever. I mean, I kind of think about selling every once in a while. I put a post up. That is not selling. Selling is actually every day, basically, putting your offer out there in some way, shape, or form to people. I have no problem selling every day because that's what all companies do. They sell every single day. They don't take a day off. Apple doesn't take a day off from selling computers and phones and whatever else. So we don't have to take a day off from that either. Of course, we can set it up so that we're not having to be present online 24/7 live selling. But there's nothing wrong with making an offer to your email list every day, including it in a PS, mentioning it in a YouTube video, putting it in your description of your profile in Instagram, whatever it may be. So selling is being active. It's not trying. It's actually doing it. So that's another piece of this puzzle. So I'm going to go back to Mimi's question, which is one of the biggest ones here. And how I wrote it was, how do you know if it's time to stick with your offer or genuinely pivot? So how do we know when the time is right? Well, let me put that question to you first, if you're here with me live. How do you think you know if an offer isn't selling, if something's wrong with it and it's just not working? How do you know it's time to give up on it versus sticking with it? How do you know actually? While you're considering that, I want to give you an example of someone I remember this very vividly, who was in business and was at a point where she had done okay, but not good enough to, make a go of her business. And she said she was getting really frustrated and she had been bouncing from offer to offer to offer. And she finally just said, you know what? I'm going to pick one of these that I've been trying to sell, and I'm going to sell only that for 6 months. That's it. So she just picked one of, I don't know how many she was selling at the time. And she sold it for 6 months. She said, that's literally all I talked about. Every piece of content that I made and shared, it was somehow related to this one offer. Every time I said, this is what I'm selling, this is what I was selling, this one thing. And she said in 6 months, she made $100,000. And she thought, okay, I guess I don't have to go get a job again because now I know how to do this. So Mimi says, if there's not even any inquiries about your offer, that could be an indicator. Yes, it does depend on how much you have put out there for people to inquire about. How many people have you invited to, let's say, have a conversation with you about your offer? How many calls like that do you have on your calendar each month, if that's how you like to sell? If you only have one call on your calendar per month and that's how you like to sell, then that's not a good indicator of whether an offer is good enough or not, because you're not getting enough feedback. You're not getting enough experience in trying to sell that one offer. Hi, Erna, you've pivoted offers. No judgment about that. Yes, I started this whole training with that very comment, that I have done this myself. And it's something that I wouldn't say felt guilty about exactly, but I can see that it has slowed my momentum and I have not been as effective as I could have been. So yes. So thank you for calling me out. I have already called myself out and I don't feel any self-judgment about it. I said that I made a post on Instagram today related to a similar topic where I admitted that I have made some mistakes and that I am now embracing what I've called radical simplicity. And that includes offers that solopreneurs are creating and putting out there. That it's much better for us to have one offer that we believe in and that we know is really good and that we actually actively sell, not quote unquote try to sell. Oftentimes, if an offer is not selling and you have been actively selling, meaning you have been sharing it with people, you have maybe been talking with people individually about it. If an offer is not selling, it's usually because it's too complicated. This is what I've seen with a lot of the clients that I've worked with over the years, is that once they simplify their offer, once they kind of boil it down to its essence, instead of trying to cover everything from A to Z, then it starts to sell. So it's not throwing the entire thing out and starting over, as we were talking about before. It's more about getting to the piece of the offer that is going to have the most impact for the person. As I like to say, taking people from point A to point A, point one, not A to Z. That is typically what hangs people up when they are trying to sell an offer, even if it's one that's very close to their heart and they know would help people, that it's just got too much going on. It's too packed and it needs to be simplified. I have talked, yes, Erna, about the power of one. I have spoken about that for a long time now, and I'm going to speak about that in just a moment. In essence, what that means is the way that we can get momentum, the way that we can get sales, the way that we can stop paying that starting over tax is to focus our energy on selling one offer for one specific type of person using one platform and one clear message. This can also be extremely helpful if you are a solopreneur with some experience and you're wondering why things are stalled. You can come right back to what I just described, this power of one framework that I came up with a couple of years ago. And you can start again from there, which is exactly what I am doing myself. I am being the living, breathing example of everything that I am now talking to you about. No more offer switching, no more confusion. My message is very clear. I am embracing radical simplicity for solopreneurs who are tired of the complexity that is being thrown at us all the time. We are allowed to have one offer that we believe in for one specific person. We are allowed to talk about that one thing as much as we want to and sell it as often as we want to and have the kind of business that actually works for most solopreneurs. Because what happens here with the offer switching part is that when we are working for ourselves as a solopreneur, we don't have a team of people to absorb the cost. We are absorbing that cost that I just talked about when I shared that calculator. That's us absorbing that. That's not anyone else. So that's why we need to stop switching offers and we need to come back to what we know actually works. So let me know in the comments, especially Mimi, since you brought up the question, if that was helpful to you. I can tell you about one offer that I made. I'm not going to get specific about what it was, but there was one offer that I sold a few years ago that I sold because people were asking for this particular offer. And I didn't really want to deliver this particular thing, but I got so many requests from people that I finally said, you know what, I'm just going to do it because people want this. And I had a terrible experience. They had a great experience. People loved it. I did not enjoy delivering it at all. And I remember thinking, gosh, maybe I just need to tweak this offer. Maybe there's something that's not working quite right. And so I made a few changes and I ran it again. And I have to tell you, this one offer in the course of a year, I think this one offer alone probably brought in at least $50,000. So it was, a good chunk of change. I didn't enjoy delivering it again, so I dropped it. So that's one way you can tell is if you are selling an offer and you actually do sell it and you don't enjoy delivering it, it might be time to just drop it entirely. And that may be a case where you do need to start again, but take that lesson in. What were the things about this delivery that I didn't enjoy? What things about talking about it did I not enjoy? I won't do that again. Oh, great. I'm glad that was helpful. So one thing can also be for one-to-one as well as a group program, Erna asks. Absolutely. In fact, the one offer that I have is a tiered offer. So there's one piece that you can purchase on its own, or you can purchase that and then add on one-to-one coaching with me. So that is still one offer, even though there are different tiers of support and contact with me. It's still one offer. It's around the same topic, which is giving you a step-by-step playbook to follow for a month that you can rinse and repeat so that you're not having to reinvent the wheel every single month in your business. So it can work with any type of offer here, this one offer, instead of switching things around. You can offer it in different formats. That could be something that you could do. That wouldn't, in my mind, would not be considered offer switching if you had a one-to-one version, a group version, and you sold both of those as long as they're around the same thing. What we're talking about here is jumping from topic to topic to topic, different formats, different platforms, all that kind of thing. It's not helpful to our momentum and to, frankly, our mental space. It gets too confusing. It gets too complicated. So now the question is, well, how do we get behind one offer? How do we build the momentum around one offer when that is the only thing that we're talking about. And for me, the biggest piece of this, it's hard to stress this enough, is you have to 100% know that your offer is transformational. You have to absolutely embody what you are offering to people. You have to embrace whatever it is with your whole heart and soul, because if you're going to go out there on a daily basis and this is the thing that you are talking about, it has to be the thing. It has to be the thing that is like part of you, that is closest to you. So in my case, the realization that I came to as I'm talking to you today in July of 2026 was that something I have been living for the past 20 years, and that I started my business with, and that I have gone back to at various points in my business, is this power of one and the simplicity around that. That in my life, I have embraced simplicity the last 20 years. I have pared things down, made things much less frenetic in my own life. And when I started my business back in 2016, 10 years ago, it's hard to believe it's been that long, I was very focused on selling one thing. At the time, it was a simple one-to-one coaching offer. I had a very specific type of person that I wanted to work with. And my message in the offer was, bring me the biggest challenge you are facing in your life right now. The one thing that if you could get over this obstacle, a lot of things would change for you, like a domino, like the first domino. What is that? We will fix it. We'll find the solution to it. That's literally what my offer was, that I sold for over a year. I think it was around 14 or 15 months. And so that was how I was able to very quickly start bringing money in, because people knew that that's what I was offering. I got sort of synonymous with, oh, Mary can help me solve a big problem. Whereas now my one offer, which is this 28-day simplicity playbook, the problem that it solves is it helps a solopreneur to stop reinventing the wheel each month and have a personalized, no templates, this is all personalized, step-by-step plan that they can follow every week for 4 weeks, and then they can do it again without having all of these complicated ideas popping up all the time, and being able to focus on what's important. Let me go back to Mimi's question. You were saying transformation. I therefore hear you saying that you offer people a result based on pain points. That's an interesting question. What I would say is it's more than that. If you're only going to offer one thing, it has to be more than addressing people's pain points, because that is going to get really hard to talk about. It has to be something bigger than that. This is me talking, my opinion. So you can listen to that or not. But from where I am sitting right now, and my 10 years of doing this, if I don't have a bigger reason behind my offer other than talking about someone's pain points per se, it's going to be hard for me to sell just that thing. So when I was a life coach and I was saying, bring me your biggest challenge, I was talking about not just that pain point, but I was talking about bigger issues around that. Like, this is about transforming your life, not just solving this problem. This is about giving you a whole new way to approach any challenge that you come across, those kinds of things. For example, now, as I started this talk with, my whole focus is on radical simplicity for solopreneurs who are feeling overwhelmed by all of the options that they're seeing all the time, and they're not sure what to do because they're getting conflicting advice everywhere. I want to stop that in its tracks. That is my bigger mission, as I see so many amazing solopreneurs who are struggling because they are jumping from one offer to the next. They're jumping from one coach to the next. They're listening to multiple people telling them about strategy. And I don't want that for them anymore. I want clarity for them. I want power for them. I want focus for them. So yes, it's about a result in that, in my example, yes, they are getting a tangible, personalized, customized 28-day plan that they can use over several months. But that is the distillation of my bigger message, my bigger mission. Again, I want to reiterate that there's no judgment around any of this. Yes, shiny object syndrome, Mimi says. There's no judgment around shiny object syndrome. There's no judgment around switching offers. There's no judgment around any of this. We are all now, right in this moment, coming to a point of clarity where we've seen the actual cost of offer switching in dollar terms. We have felt the cost within ourselves. And thinking about what you were saying a moment ago, Mimi, a lot of people, instead of offer switching, they just don't offer anything. They just don't even start because they have those fears of rejection, like we talked about. They have doubts about whether it's the right offer or what if it doesn't sell. And I had a little back and forth with someone today where I simply said, I'm not going to wait to see if this offer that I have now called the 28-day simplicity playbook is going to sell. I simply will sell it. It will work because I've decided that it's going to. I've gotten excellent feedback already on it. I love creating it. I love the whole process. I believe in the result that people get. It is so helpful to them. It embodies my whole movement towards radical simplicity. So I'm simply going to sell it until it starts selling. That's all there is to it. I think I heard you say you need to also embody it, Mimi says. So have full experience with what you say can help someone with. Yes, that's essential, because if we aren't the embodiment of what we are offering to people, they will feel that. They will absolutely feel that. And it's interesting because, as I said a moment ago, it was funny to me almost that I hadn't embraced this idea of simplicity myself, because I have consciously been living this way for 2 decades. It's literally been something I have been doing in my life, not trying to do, but actively doing in my life. And so it was like all of a sudden, it was just so obvious to me that this is my path that I need to be on starting now, is this simplicity path and this business simplicity path, especially because I myself have been overwhelmed by shiny object syndrome at times. I have done the offer switching. I have listened to too many voices out there, and it's up to us to decide that's not what I want anymore for myself. I don't want to keep paying that starting over tax. It's too taxing on me, and it's not getting me what I want. It isn't getting me the income that I want. It's not helping me make an impact. It's not building a body of work that I can feel proud of. So it's up to us to make this decision consciously. Hi, Erna. With this one offer, do you need to have a clear ideal client? That's still a challenge for me. Yes, the answer is yes, except I would phrase it differently. I would say, think about a specific type of person that you want to work with. So in my case, when I was coming up with this idea for the 28-day playbook, the person that I was thinking of, the type of person, was a solopreneur who had been in business for a little while, had made some sales, but was feeling scattered. And they knew that they were not getting enough bang for their buck with their marketing efforts and all of those things. And they didn't have any sort of real plan to follow. They were just kind of winging it every day that they woke up. They were just like, well, I guess today I'll do some marketing, or I guess today I'll maybe tweak my website or whatever, instead of having someone looking at their business, listening to their concerns, and hearing what their strengths were, and saying, okay, this is what I am seeing. I'm going to build a playbook just for you. That was who I was thinking of when I created that offer. Someone who is intelligent, someone who's eager to take action, somebody who's excited about what they're doing, not necessarily an ideal client in terms of age, gender, all of that, but more like, what type of person is this? Is this someone who is eager to learn? Is this someone who is eager to listen to what I might suggest? Is this someone who's eager to invest in what I am offering them? So those are the kinds of things that I think about. When I was a life coach, my whole thought process about who I wanted to work with was, I'm looking for someone who has tried a lot of the traditional methods for helping themselves, for getting out of these jams, for overcoming these obstacles, and none of it's worked. And they are open-minded to something they've never heard before, or if they have heard of it, they're open to hearing it in a completely different way and experiencing it in a completely different way. And that was who I was thinking of. My clients, my first year, were so varied in terms of gender, age, what they did for a living, everything from young students in their 20s up to, people in their 60s and 70s, working people. I mean, it wasn't about a demographic. It was the type of person who was open-minded and who wanted to have a different experience of life and who was looking for a different type of solution. To sum this up, the way to get out of this offer switching trap is to stop trying to create or find the quote unquote perfect offer. Just stop trying to create that, and instead create something that is near and dear to you, that you embody yourself, that if someone were to look at your life, for example, they would see that you are the living embodiment of this, whatever it is. And allow yourself to relax into it to the point where it is what you live and breathe all the time, where you can talk about it freely and openly and creatively, and you have fun coming up with new ways of inviting people into your world to experience whatever it is. And it has to be something that you enjoy and that you feel passionate about and that you love. Of course, you're going to have days where, your energy might dip. That's normal. But overall, it needs to be something that's near and dear to you. And the offer that you land on, give it time to live and breathe. It will probably evolve. What you start with is not what you're going to end up with. We all know that, because people change, we change, things change. But where you start from, let yourself relax into this mode of simplicity and this power of one framework that I've talked about. One offer for one type of person, one message, one platform. You don't have to be everywhere. Choose the place that feels most like home to you and spend time there. Get to know people, make those human to human connections. I mean, I think that makes more sense to get clear on a type of client instead of ideal. Yes. I don't really understand what that whole ideal client avatar means. I remember in the old days, we would have to fill out a form where we were trying to guess what age they were, what shows they watched, I don't know, where they surfed online. I don't know. It was crazy. Like, I don't care about those details. It makes no difference. It's more about what's in here, what's inside someone. That's what I want to connect with. Hirana, I do live and breathe that, and I love sharing about it. I think I make it too complicated in how to deliver it. That is another feature I've found for offer switching, is people will go from one-to-one to group, or they'll try to create an online course or whatever. My advice is to just choose a format, period. Whatever is the easiest. Whatever is the easiest. In my case, for this new offer that I'm pouring all of my energy into, it was easy for me to create these playbooks, and I had so much fun doing them that I was like, yes, this is the offer I want to make. And I enjoy supporting people on a one-to-one basis, providing them a space for personal accountability and encouraging them and being there when they need someone to listen to them. I enjoy that. So I decided to make that what I'm doing. Will that change in the future? Probably, but I don't know. It might not. It might just stay like that. You know, we don't have to be thinking in terms of how can I scale this and how can I make this more profitable? We don't have to go there, especially if we are just starting out with a new offer we're making. Make it simple and make it fun. You know me, I'm all about following the fun. If it's not fun, I'm not going to do it. So, what is the simplest way that you can deliver something? It doesn't have to be 6 months. It can be 4 weeks. It can be a weekend, whatever is the simplest place to start, and something that you can really get behind and that you are willing to build momentum with. And don't necessarily think you know how long it's supposed to take for something to get some steam and start to get paying clients. So if you are feeling like you're stuck in this trap of switching your offer or switching the design of it, or you're maybe in a position where you haven't put anything out there yet, the answer is simple. Listen to yourself and know that you have what it takes to sell this offer. You have it. You just need to do it. And you just need to give it time. Give yourself some time to build that momentum, to get more and more comfortable talking about your offer, to find your voice around your offer. Those things take a little while. It's not instantaneous. And we live in a world where we want things right now, right now, right now. It doesn't really work like that when you're a solopreneur. And so I want you to give yourself the gift of focus as well as the gift of space. And it's amazing in my own experience. I'll just share this with you really quickly, how much this has changed my day-to-day life since I decided to make my one offer. And it's the only thing that I'm selling going forward. So much time has been freed up, so much mental space. I've unsubscribed from a lot of people. I've unfollowed people. I'm like, I don't need that. I just need a couple of specific people who I feel a connection to in terms of mentorship. And that's all I really need. That's all I really need. The rest of it is me making the decision to go forward and to give this offer time to build, give a reputation time to build, give authority time and space to build. I'm going to put a link here to the 28-day simplicity playbook if that is of interest to you. I have thoroughly enjoyed creating the ones that I have created so far. And I can't speak highly enough of what the benefits are of this playbook, because they really do help you focus. They give you a place to land every day. You don't have any questions anymore about what you're supposed to do. In fact, just before I jumped on here, I was speaking to someone who said it's just made a huge difference in how she is approaching her one offer. I want to end by saying that whatever it is that you want to put out there in the world, I know without any doubt at all, I have zero doubt that it is more than enough. Your one thing, your one offer is way more than enough. And that if you gave yourself the freedom to focus on selling that one offer in the simplest format that you can think of, and if you just gave yourself that gift, you would get that return so many times over, so many times over. Many of us think that what we offer isn't good enough, that it's not, that it doesn't have all the things in it, or that people aren't going to get enough of a transformation. That is just wrong. What you have, what I have, what we all have is infinite. And we don't have to worry about it not meeting someone's needs. We don't have to worry about it being rejected. If it's something that we know inside and out, that we have experienced, that we embody ourselves, then that is what is truly important. And the rest of it is just time and practice, time for things to build, practice at selling, practice at talking about what you're offering to people. That's all it really takes. It's not that complicated. We've just overcomplicated it unnecessarily and innocently, frankly. I invite you to click the link to check out the 28-day simplicity playbook. You can also find it at simplicityplaybook.com. If you are interested in checking that out, I would love that. If you have any questions about that, feel free to email me, mary@maryschiller.com. What has been a takeaway for you? If you're here with me live, I'll give you a moment. Let me know what has stood out to you most. I would love to hear. What has stood out to me is your willingness to participate. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for Erna and others calling me out on this. As I said, I have seen myself do it, but that's not happening anymore. So it's a new day as of today. Thank you so much for being here. I will talk to you again very soon. Bye for now.